Welcome to Italy, where we're going to follow the process of designing and building a brand new shotgun. I had my mind changed when I first came here.
Their capacity to think outside the box, to create guns with you in mind, is actually great.
And that trip really fueled my openness, humility, and desire to learn as much as I could about gun making and gun design. So when I was offered the chance to return and learn how they went about designing and producing a new gun in much more detail, including seeing all of the outworkers.
I love robots, and I love guns, so gun robots always win.
I was all in.
This could be one of the most spectacular shooting grounds in the world. I'd never realized you could have all those things put together on one gun. So there's sketches, and then there's 3D drawings, and the piece of metal they need to turn into the shape of an action is this. You wanted to make a new gun. Why? Three years ago, we came to Valtrompia for the first time doing a Rizzini factory tour. 3 years later, we've changed a lot, and so have they. And they've invited us here today to look at the new 220 and 240. To see how it's designed, to see how it's built, and more importantly, to go and shoot it. This is how Rizzini and every other gun maker built guns in the 60s and 70s. Lathes, mills, hammers, vices and files. That's not how they're made anymore. Since we were last here, Rizzini have been investing in new machines. They bought a property next door to expand production, and they have launched this. Well, these really, the 220 and the 240. Before we start the build process, let me introduce the two new models. This is the 220, available in 12, 20, 28, 4, 10 and 16 gauge. It is a game scene game gun. There are two different game scenes, one on the 12, 16 and 20 and one on the 28 and 410. The 28 and 410 has quail and rough grouse, and the big guns have ducks and pheasants. Just caliber specific, I guess. Kind of nice to have the two differences. You have Prince of Wales stocks, solid midribs, and a skinny 6mm parallel top rib. You also have alloy actions like this that features a titanium hinge pin and titanium action insert, and steel actions. So you have a big variety in the 220. The 240 is a much simpler platform. All of those calibers are still available, but engraving wise you have the black and gold standard and the EL. It's got a full pistol grip with palm swell and vented top and mid with a tapered top rib. Pretty simple. There is a lot more to these guns, but without further ado, let's see how they were made.
Let's wind right back to the start to see how one of these is designed.
The story starts here.
Yeah.
You wanted to make a new gun. Why?
We want to make something different, something new, a different form, a different design.
So this is just concept art for the new gun. Removed the side pins, made them flush. These bolsters look a lot heavier than the 110, and the front of that action is completely rounded.
It's a nicer feeling for the hand, nice design to see.
It's a little more classy, sleek up the design, modernize the design. Is that the same profile as your round action?
Yeah, it's the same profile.
But you have raised half side plates to keep some mid-weight and to add a a flat surface to engrave.
Also because we try to make a gun for everyone.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Drawings done, sketches
Yeah.
done. What
Yes.
is the next step?
The 3D project. We start from the sketch and put in a 3D, in a computer.
How many hours did it take, or how many versions did it take to come up with this final action?
We put a lot of hours to modify the very first version, to make rounded, to make nice, to balance the form.
To make sure the side plates are the right
Yeah.
length, to make sure that carving up around the detonation of
Yes.
fences is correct. I guess it's just you try new things until you're happy.
Yeah, yeah. And this is only for the aesthetical. You have to consider also the mechanism. On a computer, on a 3D, you can see exactly, go to insert every single pieces in the drawing,
Okay.
and you see exactly if you have the correct tolerance, everything is going before machining.
The internals will stay the same as the classic Rizzini action, or have you changed anything?
Internal, we take the same Rizzini action, also because we have a very strong mechanism.
Tried and tested for
Yeah.
a lot of years. I think that's doubly nice, because what that means is that old guns don't become obsolete. You continue making the parts that will work in this and will work in the old guns forevermore. And that's kind of nice.
Obviously, you make something new, some pieces made in a different way to have the tolerance very small, but the mechanism is
The basic
same.
design
Yeah.
stays the same, but the processes and quality of the parts increase.
Yeah.
Once an action design is finalized and the construction process planned out, the concept becomes reality down on the machine shop floor.
So there's sketches, and then there's 3D drawings, and the piece of metal they need to turn into the shape of an action is this, an action forging. They take hot metal and they push it and manipulate it into this shape. It's obviously a lot quicker to machine this, a rough action shape, into a final action with a lot less waste than if you were doing bar stock. Bar stock's all well and good, but there's a lot of time and a lot of wasted time, unnecessary time. Obviously a huge investment in the beginning to get these action forgings made and actually make the stamps up to create these, but when you're working on the scale these guys are, which is thousands of guns a year, it pays dividends to work from this. Obviously this doesn't look much like an action, so there's a lot of machining to do. Let's check it out. They come from that first machine after a very simple process looking like this. This has had the sides screwed up and has had some weight loss. The machines here and here are way more expensive and way more precise, so it makes sense to save the time in these machines for way more precise jobs. What is needed is screwed up sides to be able to fit it on these big turntables that will feed this machine 24 hours a day. This is stage 2 that's just come out of this big machine with multiple spindles. It's looking more like a gun.
Yeah. Now I show you what is the third stage.
So this would take a set of barrels now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the employee mount the trigger plate,
Yep.
and the action go in this machine and made the external design.
Something like this.
Yeah.
This is the machine that makes a gun beautiful. This looks so detailed, like it had been carved or filed by hand, which is impressive.
To have a production, you need a machine. Other way is impossible to make by hand every single gun.
Consistently at a fair price.
Ah, yes.
Carving actions by hand is beautiful and very special,
Yeah,
but expensive
expensive.
and not consistent.
A lot of people thinking that easy to make gun by machine, but have to invest money. You take a long time to have the know-how to build good gun.
Engraving.
Polishing first, and then engraving.
Once it's all sanded up and polished, you're left with this, a plain action. The market for plain actions is not that big, and so it needs to go off for engraving to look like this, and that is done up the hill at Bottega Giovanelli.
This is Bottega Incisione Giovanelli, which translates as the Giovanelli Engraving Workshop. These guys engrave guns from different makers all over the world. Not only do they do glorious hand engraving, but they've got all of the facilities for laser and rolled engraving too.
When it comes to engraving, you could put whatever you want onto a 220 or a 240. How does the design process work, and then how do you go from concept to reality?
The first question, where do you want to sell your product? Europe, US? You have to choose the kind of engraving more classic, the game scene, ducks, pheasant, bobquail for US. It's better if you choose something more classic as possible. The second thing is to choose the good space in the action. Speak with Bottega Cesare Giovanelli.
And 5 minutes from your factory.
Yes.
Very convenient.
Said my idea. They put my idea on the paper.
So do you start with drawings and then a hand engraved gun, or do you go from drawings straight to the laser pattern?
Depending on the technique we will use. The scene, in this case, is made by roll engraving.
Rolled engraving is now rarer than laser, because its creation takes a lot more processes.
Interesting. So this is still pressure rolled on?
Yes.
Each rolled engraving starts as a hand-engraved master plate. This plate is super hardened and a soft roller pressed into it to take on the reverse form. This roller is then hardened and rolled back and forth over unhardened shotgun actions until they've taken on every detail.
Once these techniques are done, we do the final step, that is hand engraving. And we finish it by hand. A step done by machines, and then we finish it by hand.
So this is done by laser.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is then rolled on.
Yes.
And then if you turn it into the light, you can see all of the light catching where it's then being cut by hand.
Yes.
That's so cool. That is really very interesting. So you get the hand finished look, the hand engraved look for a fraction of the hand engraved price.
Because with the roll engraving, you can't have the black color. Because in my opinion, the scenes are better done with roll engraving.
More similar.
It's more similar
to handmade.
Yes.
And the laser, about the game scene, the result is a little bit flat.
Yes. You can do also scroll with roll engraving, but not with this deepness.
I do think it's a good looking gun. I love the fact that you have that dark background, the really bold thing, but then this really classy game scene. And you were saying, right first thing this morning, is you could just have a fully custom if you wanted on the side.
Yeah.
The action is of course only one component of a shotgun. Monoblocks, trigger plates, ejectors and much more are all made on the same floor as the actions. Some parts are made from forgings and others from billet metal. Forgings make for less machining time and less material waste, which helps keep the cost of these guns down.
Once you've made the monoblock, you stick 2 tubes in and they're sent off to be joined together.
Yeah.
But they're not soft soldered.
We use castling to soldering the monoblock to tube because it's much short. They can resist to high temperature. We prefer to.
So the ribs won't come off when you're out shooting in the sun.
Yeah.
It's then machined flat, the ejector slots cut and ejectors fitted.
Yeah. The first machining process is to create the position for the ejector. To go to insert the ejector and make everything together. And now we have to make the chamber.
Just pull them out and put a rim in.
Yeah.
There's a machine for everything here, and every machine is running all the time. We just had a look at a trigger machine, which is really cool. Come see.
Yeah. For example, this is an adjustable trigger. We take off from the solid block of steel.
Yeah.
No casting. You can see it's in two parts. At the end, we have a button. You push a button, you can move and select your side.
This machine behind me is the last one we're going to look at, and it turns this very complicated trigger plate forging into this even more complicated trigger plate. More impressively, it turns it from this into this in one pass of the machine. 5-axis CNC machines aren't cheap, but they are the future of making good quality guns with interchangeable parts. But most importantly, it shows you that what we looked at right at the beginning up in the design department of designing good pieces and then writing quality machining pathways really does make the difference between a good job and a great job. A great job meaning you get it done on one machine, which increases the interchangeability of parts. The more machines you go through, the less likely it is for a tolerance to be correct. There is no doubt quite a lot of waste metal, but this doesn't go to waste, it goes off to be recycled. High quality steel means that it has great value afterwards to go off and be remelted back into something that is of equal quality. I would just like the look of it, it's quite shiny, isn't it? I dream of mixing it with epoxy and turning it into a kitchen floor. That's a bit ridiculous, but hey, not the first time being ridiculous.
With all the metalwork done, let's get onto the stock.
Each of these gets turned into a stock in-house at Rizzini. But first, I want to talk to Pepe about stock design. When it comes to stock design, that's done on the same 3D design process.
It's the same process because we have to prepare all the program, all the 3D for the machine.
When it comes to stock design, how do you pick the measurements? It's going to be most popular to most people.
Yeah.
Somewhere between you and me.
Yes. In some case, if we don't have the proper program stock, we have to do by hand.
Do the headwork and then go to someone like Esseviere,
yes,
as we did with the factory tool.
Yes.
On our last trip to Rizzini,
Sold into the gun. Yeah.
we went to Esseviere and saw a hand-sculpted stock. Obviously, this isn't an option for a production gun. But I did find something interesting for those of us over 6 foot tall.
Just made that comment to Giuseppe about long stocks for tall people, and he, off camera, just said, well, we kind of make that already, because every stock that comes off the machine will give you a 400mm length of pull, which is 15 3/4 inches. So this is a standard Rizzini stock before it gets cut down and then sent off to the next stage. And tell you what, that's kind of awesome. And then he goes to say that there's a minimal charge as long as you don't want other dimensions changed and it's just a length changed. Suddenly, there is a gun on the market with a 15 3/4 inch stock. I appreciate many of you won't care about that, but I do.
All stocks are brought in as blanks, pieces of wood that are cut roughly stock shape, and dried to the perfect moisture level. These are then machined to size in Rizzini's wood department.
With everything planned out and 3D designed, it's time to make this a reality. A board starts as a block of wood. It then has a cut put down it on an over and under. It's then left for 2 months to rest. When it comes to stocks, the first thing is to rough it into a stock shape. If it's full pistol grip, that'll be one stencil. If it's English, that is another stencil, and so on and so forth.
Once this is done, the stock is put into a turning machine where the rest of the stock is shaped.
We have now taken this blank and turned it into a stock shape looking piece of wood. The head is all machined up, ready to be clipped onto an action, and the stock is 90% of the way there, isn't it? It looks very much the right shape. What it does need, however, is smoothing. It still has all those machine marks put all over it. it needs a pad, and more importantly, it needs a finish to be applied to make it weatherproof and to bring out all the beauty that is hidden inside this wood. That is not done here at Rizzini. That is done by a specialist outworker, RPS, 5 miles down the road.
Without some sort of finish, wood is susceptible to water and dirt. It's also less pretty. Gunmakers apply a variety of finishes to the wood to enhance both durability and beauty.
So welcome to Renato Polisoretto. As you can see from the stocks around me, this is a professional stock finishing outworker. Doing everything from hand rub oil finishes, or polyurethane spray coating, sanding, finishing. This place is pretty cool. Most impressive, there's a sanding robot over there. That is a giant bath of polyurethane, by the look of it, being spray applied to stuff. In my head for years, I always imagined that every gun was hand finished by a little old gun maker at a workbench. But the reality is, for the price point that we expect guns to be, there has to be mechanization. We've seen there's got to be CNCing, laser checkering, laser engraving, with little touches of hand finishing in all of those departments. This is no different, right? There's a robot that sands stocks. There's a giant bath of polyurethane, so you never have to fill it up, or only fill it up once a day. This is just mad. It's mad.
Each stock arrived from Rizzini, with those machining marks we saw earlier. The first step is to manually sand down each stock to a smooth finish. They use powerful machines, each with a different shape of sanding spindle, working down the line of machines from coarser to finer grits. After this, the stock is finished off with a fine grit handheld sander before heading into the other room to receive an oil finish.
Here we have an example of a Rizzini BR240 stock that has just been through sanding. As we saw earlier, Rizzini machine all of their woodwork in-house, but they do use an outworker to sand it, smooth it, and then oil finish it.
The two common finishes are polyurethane lacquer and oil. Oil is superior but takes much more time. A secret blend of synthetic oil is rubbed into the stock, left to soak in and dry for half an hour before any excess is rubbed off. It's then left alone until that oil has dried completely, leaving the stock with a protective layer of oil both in and on the surface of the wood. Unlike lacquer, this isn't a one and done. If you buy an oil finished gun, keeping this finish topped up should become part of your maintenance routine.
After this, it goes back to Rizzini once it's completely finished, and then goes off to another outworker to be laser checkered, before coming back to Rizzini to be stuck on a gun. I love the use of outworkers in the valley. Some of the names here would really surprise you, but there is a great number of gun makers from across the world whose guns are sat here being finished. It's fascinating to me that these guys can offer such a different level of finish as well. You always think that there might be a different company doing the premium and the base finish. These guys have different levels, from the economy to the premium and everything in between, as well as the polyurethane finishes and so on and so forth. It's pretty unique in the world to have a company that can survive with this many staff just from polishing and finishing stocks. This is probably one of the only valleys in the world that could maintain an industry like that. And I love it. Why this place is so special. At this point, we have got barrels that are pretty much finished, an action that is pretty much finished, a stock that is pretty much finished, and all the components that are pretty much finished. However, they need to be assembled, and this is where the handwork and the time-tested gunsmith craft comes into play. And it's all up here in the assembly room. The first job is attaching the barrels to the action. Once the barrels and the action are joined together, it's time to assemble the action. Put all the firing mechanism in, all of the bits that actually make it work and run. And this is done to a certain stage. No wood is attached, just the metal work together, because at that point it needs to go off to proof, to be tested, to see whether it's fit to be sold into the world.
Rizzini use an outworker for their action and barrel finishes. Most barrels are blued in the traditional way, but some, as well as nearly all Rizzini actions, are cerakoted. Cerakote is a ceramic-based finish which enhances a number of physical performance properties like wear or corrosion resistance. A clear layer of this stuff is sprayed onto the action. Baked at 150 degrees for an hour, and then that action should be corrosion-free pretty much for life.
Now the gun is proofed ready for sale. It has a barrel finish, an action finish, and it comes back here for final assembly. And the gun is born. But not quite. It actually needs to be tested by Rizzini first. The proof house test to make sure that it is safe. Rizzini want to test it to make sure it works. So we're going to go down to the tunnel and do exactly that. We're going to put heavy loads through it, light loads through it, and just make sure this gun runs with whatever a customer may feed into it. Kind of excited. Let's pull the trigger. The last stage of the gun building program. We have a finished gun.
We test every single gun. There's only cleaning and packaging the gun.
And it goes off to its new home.
Yeah.
First, light loads are used to test the single trigger system.
If you pull the trigger and feel it's no good. You pull the trigger and immediately say pam.
Okay, so he's testing the quality of the sear engagement to make sure it's a good clean break.
Yes.
And then to test for double discharge, super heavy loads are used.
Because he's a big man. Otherwise, you can see the.
I presume at this point, if something has gone wrong, it goes back upstairs.
Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't happen too often, hopefully.
No. It's happened to, I don't know, to have to adjust a little bit the timing of the ejector, I don't know.
And for patterning and regulation tests, they use commercially available competition cartridges. A gun tester always looked like a dream job.
Nothing is left up to chance.
Yeah.
But after seeing the recoil of all of those big shells, I am less keen. Guns are then cleaned off and packed away, ready to be sent and shot around the world.
I just took this gun from the factory floor to show you quickly how the action works, as well as to look over some of the things that we've mentioned, or at least glanced over. This action is the time-tested Rizzini action. When they said they were launching a new platform, I guess my first thought was that they would be also changing the mechanism up. But as Giuseppe said, if it's not broke, why would you fix it? This is a time-tested action. It works. You don't need anything fancy. Simplicity is good, fewer parts are good. A shotgun is inherently quite a simple thing. Whether you appreciate where this gun sits in the Rizzini range between the sort of 110 and the 460 will be down to you and what you expect from a gun. For me, I really do appreciate the extra machining time spent to create this very much more classy action. I really love how this action is shaped and carved, and I really appreciate these raised side plates and this bevel. It's not a massive change, but it is a big change to actually completely re-engineer how an action works. And I guess before seeing how this process goes with the design work and then actually working machine paths to really make the dream a reality, I wouldn't have appreciated how much work goes into a an action design change. This is a completely assembled action in the cocked position. These hammers are cocked all the way back into the second sear. On the top of the action, you have a safety catch that goes back and forward. And as you pull it back, it disengages this. This is your inertia block, but it's also your main sear there. This is a T-shape, so you have a protruding piece at the front and a little arm on either side. As you move the safety catch to the top and the bottom barrel, you'll notice that this big piece here, this front part of the sear, engages in these top hanging sears. And as you move it, it jumps from one to the other. This inertia block is connected directly to the trigger. The trigger is down here. As you lift that, you'll see when the safety is engaged, it lifts up that entire block. Simply put, that safety moves forward, it lifts up, it lifts this sear up, and it moves the sear out of the bent in the hammer. Back moves up, this spring, which is currently under tension, pushes forward, and the hammer falls forward, hitting this firing pin or striker. About as simple as a thing could be, right? Just like this. Bang. After you're done, that sear falls off, and this trigger falls back forward onto the second. If it doesn't fall off, the recoil will knock it back off and onto the second. It's a pretty simple system. And then you pull the trigger the second time, second hammer falls, job done. Inside the forend is this little cocking piece here that engages with two rods on the bottom of the action. And as you open the gun, it pushes those rods back, cocking the hammers like this. I've been inside a lot of these over the years, and as such, to me, this is second nature. But I think even those without a bit of an engineering background or a gunsmithing background can see how simple this action is. And I can't reiterate enough, there is nothing wrong with simplicity when it comes to engineering. All right, I'm going to drop this back into the assembly room and go get my shooting stuff ready.
All shooting ranges are fun, but very few take your breath away.
Welcome to Valley Dopo, possibly the most beautiful shooting ground view in the world. This place is secluded in the mountains above Val Trompia and holds a really special place in my heart. It was so memorable to come here after really being immersed in Italian gun making for the first time, to shoot some Italian guns at an Italian shooting range, have Italian food, and shoot a Cosmi for the first time. This place is just epic. It's been 3 years since I was here, and I've been looking for any excuse to get back up here. We've brought a selection of 220s and 240s to shoot. Let's smash some clays, and then we've got a little special surprise, a gun that I lusted after when I first stepped into Rizzini's custom shop showroom. But that will be right at the end. Let's go and seal this video off by trying some of the guns we've seen being born. What a place. What a place. We're going to open up the shooting with this, the BR240 Standard. Those who've watched the channel before know I have a love of a touch of gold on a gun and a black and gold gun. I think this is a really nice standard thing. The look is actually relatively old-fashioned, but what is old is now new and exciting again. I like it. It's got a larger grip than the 110. It's actually based off the 110, but just beefed up a little bit. The action is wider, slightly heavier, giving a slightly more mid-weight balance. And generally speaking, well, these guys know how to build a gun, right? I mean, we have spoken extensively about how this gun's been built. I best do it justice.
There were 8 targets to choose from on this layout. Some nice, some nasty, but certainly enough to get the feel for these guns. Rizzini have been designing and making guns for a while, so it's no surprise that they know how to make a good gun. This gun had all of the shooting characteristics of the 460. But at a much more affordable price point, this is impressive.
There's not much not to like about it, to be fair. It is a well-designed sporting clays gun. You've got a large grip with palms, well, not too aggressive, but a nice big cutout at the back there, so you're not feeling like your hands exploded. It's not too big a grip, which I think a lot of people get tempted to do. That rounded American style forend, big fan of that. Relatively deep, deeper than I thought I'd like, but the radius on it just holds the hand well. It also feels slightly longer than a standard forend, which is good. Relatively unexciting tapered rib with simple crosscuts, doesn't drag the eye too much, but does draw you into the target as a tapered rib should. It's got a purple choke. I mean, I don't know that's really a huge sales pitch, but as a man who likes pink and purple, I'm down. Recoil, really manageable for a gun that doesn't fit me particularly well. I mean, we all agree that this is a bit on the short side. Recoil is very, very minimal. As a factory stock spec, it is relatively flat. I'm looking bang down that rib with my head on it. I'd maybe say that some people would want an adjustable if you enjoy seeing rib, although Rizzini obviously offer a full custom stock service. That finish we saw applied, this gun has been around a lot of shows, it's shot a lot of clays, and that finish is holding up nicely. I was expecting it to be good, but I didn't expect to actually prefer it to the 460. The 460 is big and heavy and serious, and my shooting style is not that big, not that heavy, and not that serious. I do prefer potentially a bit more of a responsive gun, and this is super responsive for being that little bit lighter. And yet it's got all the control you need. That responsive edge would make it really good for most average competition shooters, but probably also more likely something like compact sporting where you do need the little extra speed and a lot of tricky pairs. Big fan of that. We will meet again, 240.
Warmed up on the big gun, it was time to try the field guns.
We have a 12 in the light version and 28 in steel, with a steel action.
What percentage of steel versus alloy guns do you make? What is the demand in hunting?
Normally it depends from the region. For example, we sell a lot light version in France.
Lots of walking, not much shooting.
Yes, lot of walking or Bécassier, woodcock hunters. And we sell less in UK, for example. Also in Italy we sell a lot light version.
Because if you've got a woodcock up that mountain.
Also because if you look at the mountain, you understand that you have to walk.
Yeah, I want a 28 gauge alloy action, 24-inch barrels.
Yeah.
This is going to be very different by comparison to the 240. This is ridiculous.
This is very light.
More often than not, lightweight guns are pigs to shoot.
This gun's short for me, that's long for you.
Yeah.
Excuses made. May the best man win.
No excuse.
But as I moved through the course without a miss, it was evident that this was one of the good ones.
I just straightened it. I do not say this lightly, but that is the easiest lightweight gun to shoot I have ever shot. I'm not sure how you've done it, but it almost feels more like a semi-automatic than a lot of the traditional alloy actions feel quite clumsy.
Yeah.
This feels very familiar, just feels like shooting my A400.
It's very strong. Also because we have titanium.
Titanium pins are cool. You said when I first said it, they're a different color because they're titanium, and I don't know. I think that's cool. It's like having carbon fiber on a car. It's a statement.
It's a detail. It's a detail.
And it clearly shoots.
You shoot very well.
I've been practicing for today.
Yeah.
There are very few good lightweight over and under 12 gauges. Well done. This is definitely one of them. What a gun, man.
You're full.
Yeah.
25 straight.
Yeah. I am also surprised.
I appreciate that engraving offers no tactical advantages whatsoever. But life is just too short to shoot an ugly gun. Having custom hand engraving on the side plates instead of the house pattern is one of those cool extras that Rizzini can offer.
I'm aware I shouldn't be as happy as I am with that. Not totally hard course, but for me not to have a little Clady HD moment in the middle of any shooting, regardless of how hard or how easy, is pretty miraculous. Finally, from the new range, we're going to shoot this, a 220 semi-custom. Extended trigger guard, upgraded wood, pistol grip cap and case colour hardened, also with a solid top rib. What I wondered was if the 220 and 240 was going to go down a different kind of road to what Rizzini have already done. And I remember that first trip learning that pretty much the sky's the limit. Rizzini have an a la carte extras list, surcharges, top ribs, trigger guards, custom stocks, literally whatever you want. And I was wondering whether that would actually be the case with this new 220 and 240 range. And the answer is, yes, you still have what you want, providing you pay the extra. And this is an example of that, with those extras. Plus it's a 20, plus it was pretty, plus I'm in Italy, and I would regret not shooting it. So, let's give this a drive. Steel actioned, case colour hardened 220.
I've been talking about Out of the hundreds of ideas I've come up with, I've never really decided what I would have put on the custom engraved gun. And I'd love to know what you would have.
You guys do make guns for shooters. There's a lot of guns out there with a lot of technology in. Your guns are built on a time-tested action and they shoot well.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for having us and looking after us and generally being good fun to be around once again.
Thank you to you.
I love the look of this. I really do. It's a really classy gun. I think generally speaking the new 220 and 240 are great additions to the range. It's been fascinating to learn more about them. But I have one last gun to shoot.
Yeah.
Which I am super excited, which is actually your personal gun?
Yes, is my personal gun. Yeah.
All right, let's look at it. This gun began life as a Rizzini SE3, had the action slimmed, and where it was serial number 6666, Beppe kept it for himself and had a few engraving friends work on it. My favourite features or touches are these beaded horn bits flying off the back of the detonation there. How beautiful is that? And then you have a mane of hair around the back, G for Giuseppe on the top, the little beast, devils, the sun. Like, it's just got touches of exciting stuff. It's got gold, different styles of engraving, this light Bellino, and in the back here, and this gun's a little old now, it's been sort of worn and used and refinished. You have a city, but you can barely see it. I remember when I first saw it, it was one of the first guns that sort of struck me as being completely different. Enough touches that honour the old world of engraving with a few scrolls here and there, but enough new to really get me excited. Let's make it happen, guys. This has been a hell of an experience. Let's finish it on a high.
It's pretty rare that a company is this open about their processes.
This is a cool ass gun. It definitely counts as one of the most unique things out there.
Knowing that from concept to finished product, this gun took over a year of work between Rizzini and their partners, just makes me appreciate even more how much work goes into the guns we use out in the field or at the club.
These guys love guns, love pushing the limit. And as much as they honour tradition and really do a great job of making guns that people want, they aren't scared to make some pretty cool stuff too.
Once again, I left Italy with a greater understanding of gun making, with greater friendships built. And as always, a heap of memories from these great experiences. Guys, thanks for watching. It was a pleasure to share this experience with you.